Okay, well, I'm going to cut to the agenda. First on the agenda and foremost this evening, we are going to be meeting with three firms that are interested in doing audits for the town for the next 3 years.
You can go public comment after?
There is no public comment. I checked with the public and she said no.
Oh.
We're ahead of you, Tom.
You didn't have to emphasize that, Tom. Tom, what were we just talking about in the back room? You gotta believe, Tom. You gotta believe in it.
You know, being of a different religion is tough, you know?
Tom and I are the same.
You're talking about Brother Andre, trying to clarify. Anyway, that's another story.
There's a lot of good stories.
So with all that said, first on our list, we have the firm of Abbott, Frenier, and Russell. And I think everybody's pretty familiar with Bob and Holly. Why don't you come right up, please join us. We got the proposals, thank you.
Great.
We've had some time to look them over. And I'm trying to keep things reasonably consistent, so we have a set of questions as kind of the framework, to be sure we're asking everybody the same thing. I will kind of sort that out, kick that off, and try and keep track of time a little to keep us on track.
We can get
I have.
Do you need?
No, I just, each firm was just gonna do a quick introduction and
Then we'll go to some, give them an overview first.
then, no, they're gonna do their introduction and then you guys can hit it, then you can do the question.
Okay.
Well, what we've done is, Holly prepared just the benefits we think that for the town derives from is through, I think everybody's familiar with both Holly and I. Then I think Holly said we've done it for over 20 years at this point.
I've been on it for 20 years, the audit itself.
Yeah.
And the other members of our team have got no less than 13 years on the audit, so there's a lot of continuity there.
Yeah, we've got 4 CPAs that come out and do the work, so we get good experience on top of that. I don't know, there's not a whole lot more I think anybody knows who we are.
And I think that the addition to Patrick has been tremendous to the town's management team. And I think working with him has been enjoyable, and I think we have a good working relationship.
And that's good to know right now because he is on probation.
He's hanging on by 2025.
Some are 3 years.
Unless we extend it.
I know, they keep extending that.
But it is, and we've talked for the 8 years I've been here about a variety of things relative to town financial fiscal affairs. And one of the things I felt for quite some time, we needed internal expertise. And certainly Pat brought to the town expertise in dealing with municipal audits. And he's worked hard these last few months that he's been here and assures us each audit will be easier to do the process. And we made a little ground in 2012, I think, which was encouraging. But still, in all fairness, Pat had to have some time to really not only see what some of the numbers told us, but to understand the internal operations that caused the numbers and sometimes the lack of numbers to be. And as you all know, I don't even know if we've shared with the board yet. I'm saying we, and it's Pat to a great extent, is working with Harris, which is a company we went to. They brought some benefit and they brought a lot of challenges as well. Our fixed, that would be great, Debbie, if you don't mind, thank you. Our fixed assets and how we record and manage them has been a software problem forever. And we'll see changes in those things in the coming months, which will end up with, I think, better audits, the reporting part being better, as well as the process. So yeah, that was a tough decision for the board to make, to add a position like that at a time when agencies were cutting positions, but it was the right decision, and it wasn't just to create a position, put a body in it. When we thought we found the right person, we wanted to move rapidly. And I probably see more of it than anybody, and Marty these last couple of years or so, certainly more too, because we're here, but the others obviously, as you know, aren't. Gerard has made audits a number of times, the exit interviews, Paul's made a couple. But again, to try to keep some degree of consistency and information and enable the stimulation of any questions anyone might have, I'm going to ask a couple questions that may seem silly, but time is the first one, and time is money, as we all know. Knowing what you know, and you have a distinct advantage knowing where we've been for years, where we're transitioning, and maybe helps you do a little projecting. How much of the audit, the work that needs to be done by the firm to produce the product do you expect to spend on site? How much time?
3 days. And that can change. I mean, we would spend 3 days here, and we would come back and finish up on stuff as it got ready under Diane. So 3 days is what I'm saying based on that, but I know that we're here. It could very well be just 2 with the team of 4.
And I think time will be more of an issue for us with firms that don't know what they're getting into. And it really is a little bit of an unknown, to be fair. Another question we had is, what is the composition of the firm's auditing team? And I know you mentioned that earlier, Bob. When the team comes in, what is the expertise that does it?
I think you're going to find with our firm, we have very good retention with our staff. We're sending over 4 CPAs. And I think, Holly put in there, I think we have
Well,
over.
it's 2 CPAs and 2 non-CPAs. One just passed the exam. No, because one CPA is no longer on the gym hall.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
So it's
that's
not.
fine, yeah, sorry. And I will be in the field at all times. And I'm considered an audit partner with the firm. Bob is the partner in charge of the entire engagement. So he does have input into it, as well as Steve is a CPA and 2 non-CPAs at this point.
And again, having the advantage of being here, I've seen the team come in, and this room is literally pretty well stacked with bodies, computers, and data that they're going through. Are there any proposed accounting, auditing, or reporting rules that could materially affect the town's financial statements for these next 3 years? In other words, do you see changes relative to municipal auditing that you would be concerned with and be looking for and advising us on?
Not so much issues as implementation. I talked with Patrick earlier and gave him a list of what was going to be coming up. The ASB 63 was implemented in 2012, and that's noted in the audit report. And right now we have ASB 63 to 68 out there. 64 doesn't apply to the town. 65 does, and that's going to be effective for the town's 12/31/13 year end. 66 is just technical corrections, and there's not going to be any effect on the town. 67 is financial reporting for pension plans. So New York State has got to institute that, but then you guys have to pick up the ASB 68, which is how you're going to report the pension and financial statement, but that's not until 2015.
So we'll have some information as we prepare for 2015. That'll be the auditing of the year 2015?
That's correct. Yes, there'll be a lot more financial statement disclosures and actually an adjustment to the GASB 34 statements, because you're going to have to report a liability, I believe, on the financials for this pension. They don't have it all set yet. And I don't think it's going to be easy to implement, so.
Is there going to be a single audit?
I read it a little bit.
It's not.
Clear as mine.
Yes, exactly.
Is there anything, any single audit requirements coming?
Not that
Nothing that you know
One of the things we've talked the last few years about, and it's something we'll talk about with everyone this evening, I think, there's always that sense from our end that there'll be a need for more work, more time. We'll discover we have to go a direction we anticipate, do adjustments. Maybe that's not the right way to frame that up, though. But the additional work to prepare additional schedules that right now, and as you just talked, we have some knowledge about what we anticipate seeing coming, but 2 years down the road for that third year, it could all change. How do you handle that? How does that play into the contract agreement that we would have established for the 3-year period?
You mean if there's additional work on our part?
Right.
I would think that if it's in the normal course of our audit, it would be included. If there's unusual circumstances, then that's something we should discuss. But because there's another GASB coming out there, that's, or new pronouncements, that's pretty usual in our practice.
It'd have to be a major change.
To cause a change in
It would
the
have to be a
agreement?
major change.
Major. But with Patrick on board, I think that it definitely helps keep our time at a minimum, because I'm not creating, as with Diane, I'm assisting Patrick.
And we're opting schedules already prepared. We didn't have that luxury before.
Right.
Good. Again, it may seem like a redundant question, but during the exit conference, what areas would you expect to cover? What areas do you anticipate if you continue with the town for 3 years? We've worked closely together. I'm always saying, I want to see those longitudinal trends, show me where we've been, help us predict where we're going. What, do we need to adjust to get the outcomes we want? What do you see anything changing in exit interviews to help meet our needs?
I think that we're providing you with good information as it is, and if there's something that we're not providing you that you think would be useful, we'd be happy to take a look at that. I'm not sure that answers your question. You're asking what else can we give you?
Or what else do you anticipate you might want to prepare for us? Because as much as you do an audit, you have so much data that
Yes.
you can, as you've done, configure.
Perhaps visuals would be better for the board members to see, as opposed to just a bunch of numbers in a line and sitting there and discussing it.
Some of that could be merged into bar graphs, for example.
Certainly.
Just easier to see the trend at a glance versus.
Yes, it is, and certainly that is an option.
We have from our last audit, their extra analysis that they provided, we can provide it to the board members so we can see what else we provided.
Mhm.
It's not just audit.
And I'm kind of rolling through these a little more quickly, just because, I guess, but it's a question I think we have to ask of everyone tonight. What is your experience in performing municipal audits? What other government agencies have you done over the years, or do you plan on doing in the future?
We've done the city of Plattsburgh. We've done numerous towns, town of Freshton, I can't think of the name of
I
them.
was with a large accounting firm. I did the city of Rochester. I've done a lot of governmental entities over the years. I've been doing it for 38 years now. In this area, we're doing the town of Clinton.
We do fire districts, the town of Rushton, Bangor, Malone, and Waverly. And I believe those were all single audits.
Counselors?
Why is the fee going up when you don't have to spend as much time and we're providing the records?
That's a good question. I'll tell you, even though we didn't spend the time we have in the past, we still spend a lot of time. If we committed 50%, if we're making, I think I said that to you before, I'd be happy. This year, we may be, no, we're short of 50%. We're probably about 40%. So I'm getting paid for 40% of the time that we're putting in. So it seems like a lot of money, but there's a lot of work here.
Well, it just seems like we started at a certain point, and there was extra problems. So we had to pay more those years.
That was for accounting work.
When the extra problems were over, that we would be at a more reasonable rate, and it wouldn't be continuing to go up.
Well, we were adding, there was accounting work that we were doing before, and that was adding on top of the audit fee, because that wasn't part of the audit work that we were supposed to do. We have none of that anymore, so your fee is gonna be less.
Overall, but I think he's asking why
About the
is
audit?
the contracted fee higher? Actually, the contracted fee, we left the same for this coming year, for 2013. You know, as in any business, costs do go up.
Well, I just assumed that when the original things happened and it went up so much, that
Oh, we
we would
didn't-
stay
Sorry.
there,
Go
and we
ahead.
wouldn't have to go up more. And it just seems like, to me, that it has increased.
I think that when we've done our proposals in the past, we do them with a presumption that there aren't going to be any problems. So I think that that's
So
how
now,
we
presuming
arrive.
there's problems, or presuming there's none?
No,
Even
we're
without-
still under that assumption that there won't be problems. The problems that we've had, you know, we absorbed some of that time, a lot of that time, and billed an additional amount for some of that time, helping Diane get the books in, you know, better form for audit.
I mean, it's summer work. If this wasn't this time of year, we couldn't do a job, we're gonna make 40%. I've got over $63,000 this time, and we're charging at 27, I think it is.
29, I thought.
No, this
but
time,
I think it was.
whatever it is.
Mhm. You know, we take a lot of pride in doing a good job. And to do a good job, you have to put the time in. You know, I know that there's some firms that don't. You know, they come in, they do the basics, they get out. Because all they do is they look at that bottom line, your percentage, and, you know, we're not that way. I'm not that way. You know, if I see something, I'm not gonna say, oh, okay, my time's up.
You've been with the town for a very long time, we truly have a different relationship, but that is certainly a concern of mine, how we quantify realistically, and not just end up with an audit so we can check the box and throw something in a file. But, I mean, as the two of you know very well, when we go through that, we have a lot of questions. We want to learn things from it, we want to make changes and improve our fiscal affairs. It's hard, and that's a concern of mine, how we can be sure to be getting that depth of reporting and still, you know, control cost of it all. And, it's tough, and every time I think we get to this, it's a little bit tough to find that balance. But the reports are invaluable, and maybe more going forward than ever with a finance manager in place. We have the ability to implement some of the change more than we have in the past.
Interpret those
That's
numbers is huge as well.
Because I mean, I'll be the first to say, I'm not a CPA, obviously, or an auditor. I can balance my checkbook quite well. Have my fingers on a few small, you know, private businesses before nothing of this magnitude, and I don't think you'll often get a supervisor who does. So, you know, our budget office and the audits are critically important. It's hard to quantify. I totally understand where you're coming from, Tom, too. You know, where's the threshold for what we need and what we want? And, it's tough, but we get a very, very complete audit, and that's what we're used to. Anyone have anything else?
No.
Well, I went down through the questions, firm, fair, and consistent, so I guess we would say at that point, do you have any questions of us?
I do not.
No, I don't either.
You know what you're getting into, don't you?
Yeah.
Good. Well, with that said, we appreciate you coming in tonight. We very much appreciate the information that everybody will continue to digest. We hope to make a decision in the near future. We're not racing to one at all tonight. I think after meeting the firms, everybody will go back through the materials and then we'll get back.
Thank you.
Appreciate your many years of working with us too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Which classification are we in? From services, right? So we both have to have one particular one, and we're still talking about we're taking the most responsible.
You just, these are professional services, you have to make a judgment as to who's going to do the best job for you, and obviously you have to crank in the price of that formula as well.
It's kind of like choosing an attorney.
Well, but we have to justify. You always do that.
Well, I mean, you
The
can,
point is,
you,
well, we always, I don't understand that, but according to our policy, we don't have it. Is it heavy?
oh, no, this isn't bidding, that policy applies to bidding.
Well, I didn't think so.
No,
It
this
doesn't
don't.
apply to this.
No, it is professional service.
All right, so, okay, I get that.
Yeah, good seats right here. Okay, this is our next group.
All
Hi,
right.
let's introduce yourselves. I'm Alan Walther.
Heather Mowat.
Alan, have it. Thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you
We
for having us.
appreciate it. I'm Bernie Bassett, Town Supervisor.
Hi, Bernie.
We've got a little bit of a process. It's pretty casual, pretty informal this evening. We want to meet you, we want to get to know you. Everyone has received proposals that we looked over in order to try and be consistent. I always say firm, fair, and consistent. We have a set of questions that were pretty general that we're going to ask of everybody. And we try and do the same with you. But before we go to that, what we would ask is, why don't you just go ahead and introduce the firm, give us an overview if you'd
Okay.
like, and then I'll go to
Okay.
the questions.
Okay, I think what I'd like to do is go through this brief little PowerPoint thing that will give an introduction of ourselves and the firm, and we'll run through that quickly, and then we'll open it up for any questions. Just to reintroduce myself, my name is Alan Walther. I'm a partner with the Bonadeo Group. To my left is Heather Mowat. She is a manager with the Bonadeo Group. If we just take a look at our PowerPoint here, the page one is just a brief agenda of what we're going to talk about here. We'll talk about meeting your needs with experienced government professionals on your timetable. We'll talk about some of the strength and resources that the Bonadeo Group has, continuous communication, and we'll talk about a smooth and seamless transition. We know that the town doesn't switch auditors every year, and we'll talk about how that process goes. On page two, just a little bit about our firm. Our firm was founded in 1978. We're celebrating our 35th anniversary this year. We have grown in 35 years. I think the year one revenues were something like $60,000, and for our fiscal year in 2014, we will do something like $60 million in revenue. So we've had pretty significant growth over the years. We are the largest independent accounting firm in upstate New York, with 8 locations in Albany, Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, Utica, Geneva, Perry, and New York City.
Good
I
job.
don't know if you
Did
can
we
do
get them all?
it. You did.
I had it.
Oh, you did, look at that.
I cheated. I think I could remember them all. The audit for the town of Plattsburgh would be served out of our Albany office. Heather's actually technically on our Albany office team. She is actually physically located in Utica. We have over 330 employees, over $50 million in revenue. It's actually closer to 60. There's approximately 100 partners and principals, 50 managers, and we offer a full array of professional and consulting services.
Our next slide is why Bonadeo? What do they bring to the table that's a little bit different? I went to work there a little bit ago because of the good things the government team brings. They don't just bring people that graduate and go on to get their CPA, they actually bring people in from industry. I was a controller of a town, I was a budget director of the city, and I wanted to get back into the market, and one of the things that Bonadio really brought to the table was so many different people from different places in life. And that's one of the great things about the firm, is that, as you know, as a town, we scoured your budget, we looked at your financial statements and your ED, we noticed that you do a lot of capital project work up here, you have a lot of smaller districts. With that kind of effort, you often have accounting questions, accounting problems, how do you do this type of entry, what's the best thing that we should be doing? And when you have a firm that brings people from all different places in life, we have that ability to reach out to them throughout the locations. We do things as large as counties. We do municipalities that may be as small as a district. We've even done just town clerk agreed upon procedures if there was a problem in a small village, or that's a village clerk. But so we don't just do the big guys. So when he talks about the 60 million, it's not just the big guys, it's the small guys. And that's what we enjoy doing, because that's where you get to find some really interesting things that are going on out there. And I think one of the biggest things, our last line here, is we don't have competing deadlines. Being a government team within our firm, we specialize in that, and governments have really only certain types of deadlines. Your year-end, of course, is December, villages are May, and so we don't have the traditional tax return, March, April deadlines that the majority of the balance of our firm has. And that's what we think we really bring uniquely to the table, that if you have a question that's March and April, you're going to be able to find us. We're going to be here for you. And that's one of the things we think is really unique.
Yeah, our government team, I guess just to reiterate that, our government team solely works on government. We don't do governments on the side when it's not busy in the summer, or to keep our staff busy. We do governments year-round, and that's all we do. Heather and I are probably the only CPAs that you'll meet, or one of the few that don't have a tax season. I don't do any 1040s whatsoever, no corporate returns, no 990s for nonprofits. All we do is governments all year round. On page 4 is just a brief introduction of the team.
Just rolling back for a second, Alan,
Sure.
while I'm on this page. So my assumption is then that you and Heather would be the two that would come to the town?
Yes. Yep. Exactly.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, on page 4, I would be the engagement partner. I'd be the person who would be ultimately responsible for the audit. I would come to the board meetings and do the presentations. I would come for planning and for field work. Heather would be the quote-unquote boots on the ground. She would be up here doing field work, supervising the staff that does the audit work. Just to give you a little bit of my background, I've been with the firm, with Bonadio and its predecessors since 1987 when I graduated from college, and have been auditing governments for that entire time, so 26 years now. I am the partner in charge of the government practice in Eastern New York State, so pretty much from Utica east to Vermont, south to Long Island, and north to Canada is my geographic area that I cover. As Heather mentioned, we audit all sorts of governments, counties, towns, villages, cities, school districts. We do some state work, some public authorities, pretty much you name it. There's, in New York State, we have plenty of government, and as you're well aware, so we do a little bit of everything. Just to briefly talk about some of the other people, and then I'll let Heather speak about herself. To my left, Carl Cadragari is he is our partner who is in charge of our information technology services. Every audit, professional standards require that we gain an understanding of your IT systems. And instead of having CPAs who dabble in that, we actually have a whole department that's all these guys do. Carl is whatever a CISA is, I'm not sure what that means, but he has literally a alphabet after his name with all the various computer, IT-related designations, and those guys do the IT work. They'll come up here, interview your staff, and gain an understanding of your IT systems. To my right is Nick Mazza, who's a principal with our firm, and he's our municipal consultant. We hired Nick approximately 3 years ago. He had a 35-year government career he was a county administrator and a county finance officer. So as Heather said, he's also not a CPA, but he brings the real-life experience of being in government in New York State to us and consults with our clients. And then below Nick is Kristen Clark. She is our quality control partner. Kristen's role in the audit is that every report that we issue goes through our quality control department. So her team will read the report, make sure that all the necessary disclosures are there, make sure that the audit report reads the way that it should, and just make sure that we meet all the professional standards that we need to. And I'll let you.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of mention on the information technology, one of the things that's really unique about Bonadeo is that, accounting software and privacy rules, that's what's right at the moment. And making sure that your software is protected, right, from people that can't get through your firewall, to making sure that you have a disaster recovery plan. So when you see the information technology, that's what they'd be inquiring about, to make sure that your systems are protected here for the accounting software. My background, I'm a CPA, worked for a CPA firm for a while, and then I became a budget director for a city that was in crisis. They're still in crisis. We got out of crisis, and I left, and now they're back in crisis again. And I was a controller for a town there again when they were in crisis. So I've a couple of times gone in and helped municipalities try to get out of some of their financial stress. Then I worked for the Senate for a while and wrote tax law for 5 years. And got out of there as soon as I could. A little bit trying to understand what the town needs. As we mentioned, we were telling Patrick in the other room, we got your AUD, we looked at your financial statements and it applies. Every town is unique. They have similar funds, but one of the things, as we mentioned before, we don't want to just give you a set of financial statements and throw an audit opinion on it. Anybody can do that. We want to be there full service for you, that when you have a question, if you're going out to borrow money and you want to know what are the bond raters going to look for, that's part of what we can help you with and talk you through. Are there things happening out there with other municipalities that we're seeing around the state? Maybe money-saving ideas, revenue-generating ideas. That's not our goal here to focus on that, but those things come along as we look through accounting records. We come up with ideas that maybe that we're seeing other places that have been really efficient.
Is that an extra cost?
No.
No, it's as we're looking through I was looking through your AUD and I had a couple of thoughts. Just things that you see other places. It's not that it's not about recreating the wheel. We're not, we're not that smart. But what we can do is we've seen things other places and we can suggest them to you to save money or revenue generators. As we mentioned to you before, we serve over 100 government clients, and I can't stress enough. You see a big firm out of Albany, and you think, wow, $60 million, why would they want to come here and do the town of Plattsburgh? I do primarily town work. I enjoy town work. And even though you may be doing bigger clients, it's the smaller ones that actually are the more enjoyable ones, that you get to know the people, and you kind of live through their administrations with them. And that's something that everybody that I work with enjoys doing. And I think the biggest thing is that you can always pick up the phone, whether it's a board question that you might have, and I know Patrick's very proactive working for you. You can always pick up the phone and call us and say, we're hearing this is coming down the pike from Albany. Do you know much about it? We're thinking about going out for debt issuance. Do we need to have a certain fund balance? We may not have the perfect answer, but we can at least lead you in the right direction. Are there questions about some of the new payroll regulations that are coming down for Obamacare? We have people in our firm that's what they study all day long in our tax department. So even though we're not part of tax, we have the ability to go pull that information from them. So it kind of brings a full service approach.
All the extras that Heather was talking about are no extra cost. You will never receive a bill from us that you weren't expecting. And the only time we would ever bill you for anything is if you gave us another project to do above and beyond the audit. But phone calls throughout the year, we welcome them, we want them, because we want to hear what's going on, and there's no extra cost ever. Our general audit approach is on page 6. I think the number one thing that we do is we spend a lot of time in planning the audit. If the audit is planned properly, then we have the best chance of executing it properly as well. And I think the key thing with planning the audit is to define the timetables and responsibilities with management and the board. So we kind of set a calendar and we work backwards. If the last thing that you want us to do as your auditors is present the audit report at a meeting, we'll say, okay, what date do you want that? And then we'll work backwards to time to do the field work, time to do the preliminary work, etc. And then just get overall consensus as to that is what will work, and then we'll make that happen. We try to perform as much preliminary work as we can before or near year end. Risk assessments, internal control testing, transaction testing. There's a lot of work that we can do that the books don't necessarily have to be closed for the year. We can test payroll transactions, cash disbursements, document internal controls, etc., etc. We'll schedule the final field work, the testing of the actual financial statement numbers, at an agreeable date to you once you've closed the town's books.
It's not dependent upon whether the clients you have, we still would get it within a reasonable length of time.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely, we would work with you to meet with your timeline. We will fit you in to our schedule and meet your deadlines. You're not going to. That's what the benefit of having a larger firm is, that we have the resources to do that.
And we do work backwards. I can't stress that enough. I mean, when he doesn't see something on that deadline, right, as a partner in charge, knowing he's got to be up here to present, he's on top of it, and I'm on top of it to make sure that we meet those deadlines. If we don't meet those deadlines, right, then we don't grow. So it's an important thing to us for us to keep our clients happy. I don't want to ever hear anything, that we haven't met a deadline, so.
And we'll communicate, another thing, I think I don't want to jump ahead on the PowerPoint here, but one of the things that we stress as well is continuous communication. If for whatever reason we're off schedule, then we'll communicate that as soon as we know. So it's not, September 9th, you're supposed to be here, and we call you up on Friday and say, oh, by the way, we're not going to make it on Monday. If we had any issues, we would definitely give you advance notice and work with you so that we can stay on the schedule. We also, any management letter comments or findings will be discussed with management before we put them in writing. That's another thing that we stress, is no surprises. We're not going to surprise you with a management letter comment or management letter report with a bunch of comments that have never been spoken to with you. So we'll discuss all those results before they go in the reports.
And we try to work those through so we don't, nobody wants a gotcha moment. Nobody wants to be written up for anything. We look for those things that are serious, that are important for you to know, but we want to work it through so that we can help be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
Yeah, from our responsibility as auditors with regard to management letter comments or internal control comments is, if there's in order of severity, material weaknesses are the most severe, significant deficiencies are the next, and then other matters. Material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, we have to put those in writing to you and report them to the board in writing. If we have any other comments that fall below that, we can either put them in writing or discuss them verbally with you. And we'll work with you and determine how we want those items communicated. On page 7, again, some of the things that we think sets our audit approach apart from others. Continuous communication, like I said, all year round. We want to hear from our clients all year round. We get a lot of questions from our government clients with regard to tax issues, taxation issues, tax W-2 issues, retirement issues, a lot of questions regarding providing of benefits, and uniforms for police officers and that kind of thing, benefits for superintendents and school districts. Like those, all those questions are, we answer those at no cost, and we want to be your resource to reach out. We have government audit teams, like you said before, that understand your needs. Again, the government team that we have, that's all that they do, is government all year round. We have staffing capabilities to meet your deadlines. That's the benefit of a large firm, is that we have the capacity to come up here and do your work, and we don't have competing deadlines. There's no, as we said before, no tax deadlines, no NPO, nonprofit reporting deadlines. And transition experience, we've been, our firm, as I said on page 2, our firm has grown from $60,000 in revenue to $60 million in revenue. I think that's 1,000 times growth in 35 years through mergers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we have a lot of experience of transitioning clients into the firm. We know that to switch accounting firms is probably similar to switching doctors or dentists or lawyers. You don't really want to do it. So we try to make it as painless as possible. And what we do, and I think that to describe the process, I think what we do to make the transition easy is the communication. We will communicate very clearly exactly what our expectations are. We'll work with the other CBA firms and review their work papers and gain an understanding of what they did. And we found, and we can give you references to call, we found that it goes pretty smoothly into a seamless transition.
A little bit, we talked a little bit about our experience. We're very involved with all the state associations. NISAC, the Association of Towns. Alan and several of our people have been speakers. We're speakers at NISAC, Association of Towns, GFOA, big at GFOA. And because we learn things, we don't just speak, we learn what's really going on out there and what's important to our clients.
And the last page, and then I'll open it up, hopefully we answered some of your questions that you had written down. But the last page, why select Bonadeo and Company? We think that the first thing, the best combination of price and value. We realize as a large firm, we're not always going to be the lowest price provider, but we think that the combination of the value that we provide with the resources that we have, and that our prices are reasonable, we think that we offer the best combination of price and value. The town will experience a smooth and seamless transition. We've done this many times. We think that we have a good process to transition clients in, and the consulting capabilities, as Heather and I said, between Nick Monta, Carl Kazagari, tax department, we can pretty much handle any questions, any financial questions that the town may have. We can help you with those. So that being said, that's the end of our presentation.
Good overview, thank you.
Where's your base? Where did it start?
Where did we start? We started in the corporate headquarters are in Rochester. Started in Rochester with Tom Bonadeo and Frank Insero, who were the first 2 partners, and Tom Bonadeo's mom was the secretary, so those 2 that's the legend.
That's a legend. Oh,
That's the legend. No, that is true.
You're honest.
As far as I know, it's
Honors,
true.
and you can tell me only that it's a legend.
As far as I know, it's true. That comes right from Tom Bonadeo's house.
Well, you have, I've taken some notes, you have responded to some of the questions. And
Okay.
again, to try and be consistent from our end, I may repeat a couple, chance for you to respond to them. One of the things that we're asking of each firm is, you've reviewed our AUD past audits, it sounds. What do you see as the time frame for your firm to be here, actually engaged on site with the town?
Let me just flip to that page. I know the RFP asks that the final reports, on page 10 of the proposal, that the RFP asks that the final reports be issued no later than July 31st, which is perfectly fits in with our schedule. We worked out a timeline on page 10, based upon our wishes, our wish list as we would like to see it. So with the December 31st year end, we would like to perform the field work, most of the field work March, April 2014. Issue the final reports probably by the end of June. But as we said, what we would do is work with you if that time frame either needs to be moved backwards towards July 31st or the other way into February. That would be fine with us.
March and April is part of the ongoing process, but
Okay.
how many days would you see the need to reserve this room, to bring what number of people in to actually,
To actually do the field work?
Yeah.
Typically what we do is we do our preliminary transaction testing is probably 1 or 2 days up here, and then when we do the final field work, the actual auditing of the financial statements, I would say would probably be a week, probably 5 days.
and about how many people would come, would their qualifications again be?
There would probably be, for the full time for the week, there would probably be, probably 3, at least 3. Heather, a senior, and a staff, probably 4, probably 2 staff. And then I would be up here for a couple of days to oversee the field work.
And again, some of these I think you respond to. If anyone else feels they need more information, please jump in. Do you anticipate any accounting, auditing, reporting changes that might take place in this next 3 years that we should be concerned with, that you work with us and be advising us on?
I think the biggest change that is coming up, I think that would affect the town potentially, is there's a GASB 68 with regard to pension reporting, as to where the town would have to pick up its unfunded share of the New York State ERS. Before this GASB came out, I was always under the impression that, contrary to other cities and states like Detroit, who's going bankrupt because of their unfunded liabilities, that New York State's pension plans were fully funded, and they're actually not. They're very close. They're in like the high 90s, but they're not fully funded. So the state will have a responsibility to all of the local governments that contribute to it to tell you what your share of the unfunded piece is, and then you'll have to report that on your financial statement, similar to other post-employment benefit. But that's probably the biggest change that's coming to your financial statements in the next few years.
You're saying that your expectation is that the state is going to provide that information to the municipality?
Yes, they have to. There's actually another GASB.
We've had to pay, in the past, we've had to pay to have.
Well, you're still gonna pay, but as you mentioned, only, it's up in the 90 percentile of what is actually funded. So it's not 100% funded. So there's still a portion that you're not paying that you're really liable for.
I'm not talking
Okay.
about making a payment against the liabilities. I'm talking about, we had to pay to have an analysis done so that we could put on our financial statement what our liability.
The actuary?
That was probably for that was for your health insurance benefits, though.
No, both. Yeah, I know we did it for health insurance, but we also had to do it for pension.
The state will, there's actually a GASB 67 that requires the pension plans to provide this information. So that will, they will,
That's great.
if you pay for that, that will be coming to you.
Good. And you've alluded to this one more than once, really, but the event that you have a plan, you've done your homework well, you've got a bit of a map, you've anticipated a number of staff, CPAs to come for a period of time to get the job done. What if when you get in, you discover it's going to take more time or more people? What are the impacts of that on the contract agreement we have?
If we, I guess the way that we look at this, if we underestimated ourselves how much work it's going to take to get it done, then we will eat that cost. Okay, so let's say, just for point of argument, that we estimated it would take 300 hours to do the town's audit. And we come up here, and through no fault of the town, we discover that it's going to take 500 hours. We're going to eat that time, and we're not going to ask you for any additional fees. Only time that we would consider asking for an additional fee, and again, I just want to make it absolutely clear that you will never get a bill from us that you didn't previously authorize. But the only time that we would ask for an additional fee is if, when we came up here, that the town wasn't ready to be audited, that we looked at the books and that the bank reconciliations weren't performed and that trial balances weren't closed and et cetera, we might ask for additional fees to help you get ready to complete the audit. But in very, very few cases do we ever ask if that's our risk. You know, we understand what the market is. We understand how much time it takes to do the audit, and you know, all things as expected. We'll provide a to-do letter to the town, a list of items that we expect to be prepared and ready for us when you perform the audit. And if those things are taken care of, then, you know, again, if it takes us 500 hours instead of 300, then, you know, shame on us.
You used the word communication an awful lot earlier. So my assumption then is that you communicate those needs with the finance manager, with the budget office.
Yes.
And at the point they had been able to comply with that list, then you would actually come into the audit.
Right. Yeah, exactly. What we'll do, we do what we call a to-do letter, and it's a pretty lengthy document. It'll probably be 4 or 5 pages long of all the information that we'll need, as well as a timeline for when we'll need it to complete the audit. That way, it gives Patrick and his team a heads up of what we'll be looking for, and gives him time to, you know, it kind of gives you a checklist. You know, we'll reconcile the trial balances, we'll reconcile the bank statements, we'll, you know, do payroll accruals, et cetera, et cetera. And then, you know, we'll make sure before we come up here, you know, are you ready to go, and you should have no problem.
When I came on board, we were 3 years behind in audits. Catching up, you know, it was like changing the wheels in the bus when you went down the road 60 miles an hour. We caught up. The other thing now, and I like the time frame that Pat has also presented, is to get these audits, have the discussions in time, then we can apply that to the budget process for the coming year. One of the things that we've been able to achieve, and I get to be a real stickler with, I don't want to just see this snapshot, I want to know how this fits into the trend. I want to see how this compares to last year, 5 years ago, and if we were to continue the direction we're going, what might we expect the results to be in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? And it helps us to understand where we need to change course in order to get the results we want. When you do your report, you do the final exit interviews, would we get some, what I call longitudinal data that will take a look at the trends for some period and be able to have those discussions with us?
Yeah, The financial statements themselves will include a comparative management discussion analysis, which will be a 2-year comparison. We can also do a, multiple year comparison and do some trend analysis and some statistics. We'll work with you prior to, kind of talk about what sort of, if you've ever seen a CAFR, a consolidated annual financial report, there's all sorts of statistics that the town may or may not be interested in seeing. Well, we can work with you and certainly develop that kind of information. We could do some, we audit, as we said, a bunch of towns across the state. We could do some benchmarking with similar towns across the state.
Your words, you mentioned that the firm would be value-added advice and guidance, not just giving an opinion and ongoing guidance, and you noted at no extra cost. So these kinds of discussions with the data you've gathered now would be part of
Part of the audit.
report.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
One of the other questions we're being sure to ask every group, and you've certainly mentioned the large number of municipalities you've dealt with. Let me refine the question a little. Which ones have you worked with north of Albany?
Which governments north of Albany?
Shall I take,
Yeah, go ahead.
Lake George, right?
Village of Lake.
Start going up the northway a little bit.
Warren County, the village of Lake George, Orda.
We do schools,
School
Granville.
districts, you want to hear school districts too?
Do you have any towns up this way?
Yeah.
In the Champlain Valley?
Any
Clinton,
towns,
Clinton, Essex, Franklin?
no towns in,
Clinton.
I don't think so, no towns in Clinton, I don't think we
How
have
about
any
Essex?
towns.
Well, you have to also remember, a lot of towns don't have audits, because some of them may not get federal money, so it's not a requirement for them to have it. There are some boards who don't find them useful. They may have someone like Patrick that's on board that's very competent, they feel they don't need one. So you don't, not every town has to have an
We've
audit.
got Patrick, we feel we need one.
See, I want one.
That's a fair answer. I mean, we would have gone away.
I mean,
I
we
would've.
certainly, are we the local guys? No. I guess, is that the bottom line?
No, I don't think so.
You
I-
can concede to,
Right.
Well, you have done other towns.
absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure
Many.
you've done some comparative towns to Plattsburgh, just
Yeah.
not in this end.
Yeah, they're just not in this, I mean, towns in New York State, or
Town of
town
Herkimer, we're doing town of Herkimer.
of Herkimer, town of Brunswick,
Um,
town of Deerfield.
Town of Gettys in
town of
Syracuse.
Gettys.
We're doing the city of Utica.
The city-
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's where I was.
Well, we're not quite there.
The city of Troy. I mean, we have
And we do a lot of
extensive,
villages, a lot of small villages.
extensive.
Do a lot of
experience.
justices, town clerks.
We don't have any.
Actually, would the town of Deerfield be compared to us?
They're much smaller than you, much smaller in number of employees.
How about the?
Brunswick would be
Lowe's
relatively.
and stuff, is that in the town of Deerfield or town of Madison?
Lowe's is in actually the city of Utica. That's Riverside Mall. There's the town of Hartford, we don't do the town of Hartford, but yeah. No, it's Marcy, right next to your building.
To try and stay on our schedule a bit, that does run through the gamut of questions I have. I don't know if anyone else has anything before we
Talking about
close.
the number of municipal clients that you have, do you run any kind of educational programs where you invite in municipal clients?
We do, typically what we do, we don't really do, except for, as Heather said, the teaching that we do at NISAC or GFOA.
Well, we did an ethics training a couple of months ago. This Nick Manza that works for us, he did an ethics training for a county, for all their employees. We've done some education trainings for our school districts, because they have to have ethics trainings. Do we hold some kind of symposium where we invite all our clients in, our government clients? We haven't, and I don't know that we have, but because they're so far-reaching, You know, I mean, do you want to, you have GFOA, you have the association towns, doesn't mean we
And you
couldn't
have
do
the
it.
state- Yeah, I guess what I was gonna say is, from an accounting perspective, between GFOA, the state controller's office, you can generally find training at little or no cost. So we never really found that that was needed. For municipality clients, as Heather said, we do some training for our school districts, the extra classroom funds. We do some ethics training that Nick Mazza does, and we do an awful lot of Medicaid compliance training, because that's where we find issues, especially with the counties. You guys don't have that issue with the counties and the school districts. We do a lot of that. So, I don't know if that answers it. We do some.
Okay, anyone have anything else? We appreciate you coming up here.
Okay.
It's been
Well,
very
thank you. I know we
informative.
took,
Thank you so
maybe a little
much.
more time than you
Thank you so much.
had allocated.
The process is, we're going to review the information,
Okay.
we're going to huddle on this now, we'll get back before too long.
Okay,
Thank you.
excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate you having us up.
We appreciate your effort to do a proposal as well.
Yeah.
We know that takes time as well.
Glad to do it.
Good job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mhm. There is a great deal of time and work to put a proposal like that together, and there are a lot of firms that don't even bother. It's just,
But I mean, if you look at the extras that you're getting for the dollar that you're investing. The extras, I don't know, if somebody else adds on to it, you know.
I liked hearing that they welcome phone calls.
They may not.
Yeah, right.
Right
up here?
Put that in writing. Put that in writing.
This is Nicholas Ellis from Greg and Van Ware.
Hey,
Everybody? Nice.
Good
We're just
evening.
waiting on Mr. Wood to come back from
Good evening.
the men's room.
Have a seat, relax.
Take a deep breath.
They're not as mean as they look, so.
I'm from Malone. Okay.
Now, you're heading back to Malone tonight, or are you gonna spend the night in one of
Oh,
our fine
heading back.
hotels in town?
Ready that.
Generate some sales tax.
We can keep them here long enough.
You have a lot of activity going on in Malone, I've been reading lately, with
We've got a little bit of stuff going
some construction and some
on. A little bit.
effort to generate some new hotels.
Yeah, it's nice to see some
It's good.
changes. Yeah.
The airport just got awarded some money also.
That's correct.
Now, do they do any commercial flights out of there at all?
Not really. Mostly just a lot of local, some hangers, some local flyers.
Okay, well, we have some questions that we want to ask you. Maybe you'll address them before I get to them, but to try and be fair and consistent with everybody, and so we're comparing apples with apples. We appreciate your time to put a proposal together and come here this evening. We know that does take time, and time is money. And we've looked that over, but we want to have a chance to hear from you and, interact with you a bit, so we may even ask some questions that were obviously there, but it gives you a chance to talk to us as well as us just read about it, if that's okay. If you'd like to start out with just doing an overview, share yourself, the firm, that would be fine.
Sure, I'll do that. I'll start with a little bit about the firm. We're a small regional firm. We have approximately 15 to 20 staff, depending on the time of the year. We operate out of 5 offices scattered in the North Country. That's the North Country, so you have to operate sometimes. We have offices in Lake Placid and Malone. Those are kind of our main offices, but we also have offices here in Plattsburgh, one in Messina and one in Canton. So we cover a pretty wide area. We do kind of a wide range of services. You know, we like to call ourselves, you know, a full accounting firm. You know, we don't, I mean, we've got some people that specialize in certain areas, but, you know, we've offer a lot of services, where, you know, anything from tax to audit, financial services, consulting. We've, we primarily just practice in Northern New York. We do have some clients outside the state and outside the country, but we are a regional firm. I've been with the firm for about 7 years total. I started with the firm in 2000. I left the firm for a little while and went into private accounting. Came back about 5 years ago. So I kind of been on both sides of the table. We've got the firm name Dragon Benware. Both Gary Dragon and Gary Benware both retired, but the name is well known, so it's kind of important to keep that. My partner, is myself and Doug Hoffman, Real Classic. We feel that we're a growing firm. You know, the small town kind of feel.
Okay, thank you. As I said, some of the questions may seem odd, given the information you've shared, but again, we wanted to have something that was pretty firm and consistent with everybody we spoke with. You've looked over our AD, the information that was provided, the RFP, et cetera. What do you sense as the amount of time would be spent by your staff actually here at the town hall on site?
Well, we do it a couple of, I think on page 14, we have a schedule here that can kind of talk about the time, and if I go down the schedule, if you don't mind. So the first thing we do is, we would come in and we would do like it would take maybe a couple of days. We would do some preliminary work where we'd review and become familiar with your internal controls. We would do some various testing up front of those controls to get familiar with them. We would also take time with staff to learn the processes. And then we would use that information we gathered to assess the risk of internal controls with the town. And we would plan our audit accordingly. We would plan on doing that in May timeframe. It would take a couple of days on site here to do that. We do what's called a risk-based auditing. Identify risky areas and plan our audit around those areas accordingly. We would then come back, probably, we try to keep it, we don't want to be in the way. So we try to keep it seamless. We realize that everybody has a job to do, and we certainly don't want to interfere with that on a day-to-day basis. But we'll probably be here for another week, 5 days. Typically, we can wrap it up in a week. Sometimes it takes a couple of maybe follow-up meetings, but generally when we leave that second time, we've got all the information we need to issue a report.
How many CPAs would come in at the time you actually do the audit?
We probably would send in, there'd probably be one on site the entire time. So we'd probably have a audit manager or senior here every day. With probably 2 staff and I would probably come on site, probably 2 days. 2 days, usually I like to go on in the beginning of the audit process to help the staff going, to talk with employees and your staff, and then also I like to come in as part of the wrap up of the entire process with an exit conference and addressing the issues.
Thank you. Do you anticipate, this would be a 3-year agreement, are there any concerns, changes coming relative to the, relative to accounting, auditing, reporting rules, et cetera, that you would want to red flag us and work with us to be ready for in the next 3 years?
Well, there's always a lot of changes. It's every time you feel like you've made the last change, there's another one right around the corner. We've, you guys have, you've worked through a few of the changes recently. The largest one recently was GASB 34 close. But I don't see any changes that significant coming down. Most of the changes that we'll probably see in the next 3 years would be minor compared to that. But when changes do arise, we certainly help you work through those.
Thank you. One of our, well, this is just a tough question to frame, but it's one that's got to be asked. One of our concerns, of course, is having an auditing firm come in and, we have an agreement and you start working through the books and you discover you need to get more people, more hours than you anticipated in your proposal. That could happen.
Sure can.
What happens to the proposal? What happens to the contract agreement? How do you handle that?
Well, typically what we do is most times we can work through issues within the proposal, but occasionally it does happen where we experience difficulties. And usually what happens is that in that case is we kind of just, communicate what the problems are, and address how we would fix them and the time it would take to do those. We certainly don't go through something, do a bunch of work, and then just send you a big bill later on saying here it is. But, no, we would certainly bring any issues to the board's attention with a proposed budget and a change to the proposal. Although it happens, it's not extremely common.
And you're right, it could happen, maybe it won't, but those things do happen. One of the things I heard you mention when you were referencing sharing and bringing to our attention and communicating with us. How do you see that process? What is the importance level of that communication through the process with the finance manager, with the department, and helping us to prepare and anticipate your needs, but as you discover issues, ideas, concerns?
Well, it's most of our communication during our process, of course, is going to be with the financial department. So, and as the audit progresses, if there was any updates that had to be brought to the board's attention, we would do so. Typically our communication with the board, unless we run into sensitive issues, is mainly just a issue report. We have some communication letters and so on and so forth. But most of our communication is with the financial department.
Okay. Another item, and it's a little bit of a peeve of mine. When I came on board, we were 3 years behind in audits, and that was challenging. We got caught up. Now the challenge is to get audits done in a timely fashion, which is why we will have a July deadline,
Mhm.
so we can use the information to help us, plan our fiscal affairs for the coming year. And it just is logical. So we're kind of there. The thing that I like to see, and my question is, would this be included in your proposal? When we sit down, you've gathered the numbers for the year. Can you arrange them such that they can be used to compare to previous years, that we can see trends, that you might even verbally or using graphing show us that if nothing changed, this is where you would be next year and in 5 years?
Yeah, we do a little bit of that just in our standard report. We put some graphs in, some comparative data with prior years, try to put some trending in there. And we talk about some of those things when we do our proposals to the board. And we certainly, as part of our audit, we have to analyze that data and try and see the report properly. So we do put those types of trademark benchmarks within the report, and certainly communicate those.
Good. And what about just offering to the town board, to the finance manager, advice, recommendations, sharing what you've seen in other audits that might be of value to us?
Absolutely, absolutely. I stress we're a small regional firm. We're approachable with questions, and we certainly try to help. We're a service first firm, there is some boundaries on what we can help with, and be able to remain independent, to be your auditor. But we'll certainly try to address any issues and help where we can.
All right, which really segues into a last question we want to be sure to ask everyone, and I know in your report you mentioned Malone, but what are the other municipal audits? What other municipalities, city, town, village, have you done?
I've done audits primarily just with the village of Malone and the town of Malone.
Now, is that a full audit or is it a single audit?
They're both single audits.
Both single audits.
Full financial and single audit. I've also worked with, in one capacity or another, through public accounting or when I was a private accountant, with the town of DeKalb. It's a very small town. But I've been working in some capacity with the town of DeKalb for about probably 10 years now. And it's kind of a unique circumstance we have there. We're almost, we're basically like it's almost like a CFO to go kind of service. We do with the town of DeKalb. We offer, payroll services. We do their AUD. We help with forecasting, capital purchase plans, and budgeting. We basically do the budget and go through a series of budget meetings with the board every year.
Is that at budget time when they're building the budget?
Yeah, and throughout the year.
Okay.
Just wrapping up a few of them.
Does the firm do any work with any of the municipalities in Essex County?
No, we do not. We are doing work with another small town in the same capacity of our job. We're just getting underway. There's some of these small towns, there's always hidden issues with the small towns. But they're all unique in their own way.
And you mentioned an office in Plattsburgh. Whereabouts is that?
We're right on the Towm Meeting. It's just just a small office.
You missed that?
Right before Smithfield,
Yeah.
there about that.
You know
Right
too.
hand side.
I'm sure, everybody knows.
Just before the,
Well, not everybody, but
Obviously not everybody.
most people know.
East of the
People who
Mazda.
know.
East of the Mazda, wow.
it's kind of just a remote office, it's a very small office.
Manned by,
A rotation of people at this point, you know, we're just kind of there when we need to be.
okay.
It's, we opened it about a year and a half ago. I just thought it would be a good idea to start venturing this way.
And you ventured to the right municipality. So you're obviously a shark fan.
We had a Plattsburgh office years ago, but that was, I think that was sold off to.
Very good. You know, if anyone else, I might have forgotten to ask others, do you have any questions of us? If they're very technical, that means of him.
No, actually,
Now, you guys do taxes? Do your auditors do work on taxes and also, so?
the answer is yes, but we do have some audit staff that are primarily available just for audit. We have a few staff members that do very, very little tax. Yeah, we kind of do all of it, yeah.
In the 15 to 20 total staff, how many are full-time?
Probably we have 17-ish full-time. Tax season, we have a few part-timers.
Anyone have anything else?
No.
Thank you very much for coming down. We appreciate it. Our plan is we're going to pool our thoughts, review our notes, probably make some reference calls, and then get back. It's going to take a couple of days. I got called for jury duty, so it's going to take a couple of days.
It might take more than a couple of days to get a jury duty.
But we will
And you
get
got
back to you in the near future
And you
for
did?
sure.
Yes.
We do appreciate putting the package together and coming down. It's good to meet you.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
If you have any questions on tax side.
Thank you. He does, thank you.
You got picked, huh?
Pardon?
You got picked?
I'll tell you, the way it was going, I mean, we all go in with,
Exactly.
good, time, I think, appointments. But
I wasn't here when he.
I was being the word, there's a
Because I don't mean to write anyway, like, when they say it, I
half,
done something
there
in
are
my ear,
21 of
it's
us,
not the
more than half was dismissed. It's tough, tougher than
And
I
what kind,
thought.
what are you hearing?
It's a criminal
Oh, it
case,
is, huh?
yeah.
It probably won't last very long.
The judge didn't think we'd be more than a couple of days, but it's a couple of days after they finally get
And the
jury.
pay is good.
Oh,
Ooh.
gosh. I wonder if that's part of the problem. Okay.
Your civic duty, come on now.
That's right, I'm doing my civic duty. You better believe it. So anyway, Pat, thank you for your part in organizing the process, getting the firms here. We appreciate it. It's interesting. We certainly have a little diversity there, some options.
Yeah.
We really do. And it is good to
It's
see.
interesting to see that someone actually got it off the website too.
Yeah,
Because the Bono Deal Group, they got ours off our website. So.
people do look at that.
And Heather, well, she does a search every Friday, she said.
Hmm.
And that's how she found
Finds
it.
work.
4 different spots, she said. So.
Who found that?
What's that?
Second group.
The second
Second.
group, that's how she,
Yeah.
because our,
Pat's on a first name basis.
Heather, you know,
Oh, you know Heather and Alan.
Oh, so it wasn't really that, you told her to go on the website?
no, she actually called me out of the blue.
we will review this, look your own notes over. If you have any questions, let us know, and we will further discuss this in the very near future. I really like the idea that we have an end date of July, so we can get this done early. We can use the data to work on the
As time
coming year's
progresses,
budget.
I'd like to keep moving that up.
That would be
Towards
nice.
that earlier of the year, so when you get the information, it's actually pertinent.
Mhm.
Well, I didn't know, you're ready earlier than that? We'll tell them to come in February then.
Ready is
Said in the
a,
future.
Oh, in the future.
ready is the big question. That's one of the things I think we needed to try and get a sense for anyway. Certainly a firm that walks into a nightmare and there's a lot of work far in excess of what it appeared has a right to be charging for their service. But when we have a contract for X, we have a right to expect what we're going to pay as X. And trying to sort that out, one of the rationale for investing in a finance manager was that we would begin to control the cost of audits as well as be able to get them done and get them in a timely fashion. And the idea that, I mean, you really, when you make the decision, even with the firms we listen to, there's a little bit of variance. You can get an audit. Here's the document, we reviewed the books, you're done, check the box. The last few years, as I've mentioned many times, we've gotten, and now maybe it's a little different because Pat's done it himself, the numbers plugged into a trend. So we know how we got where we are and how to control the future. And that's what's important. They do an awful lot of gathering of data. To gather it, do a report, throw it on the shelf is an awful waste. So we need to consider how important that is to the board and the future of the town, because that is something I saw a little difference in with the three firms. Who's going to give us data, feedback, counseling, and help us better manage our fiscal affairs? We don't do a lot with investments, but our investments are in ourselves and how we spend money and what we choose to spend money on and how we prepare to make those expenses. And that, I think, is extremely important with an auditing firm. So anyway, keep that in mind and to be continued, I guess. Pat, do you have any closing arguments?
No, I'm just gonna digest it all and take a look at it.
And I'm certainly, and I think everybody else will lean heavily on you to bring things to our attention, give us advice and recommendation as well. Okay, any further comments? Let's go back to the agenda. The next item on the list is Mr. Bowen, procedures. It should be purchase of goods and services.
I think we've
Procedures of goods
made
and
enough
services,
revisions here.
something like that.
Oh, yeah, all those revisions, you're fine. I haven't read the final one, but I assume that you made them.
Come on.
I just got it before this meeting
All
started.
right. That's why I gave them out earlier, so now
The one earlier I did read.
I know that.
And this is that.
I got an email of stuff. I got an email of stuff on Friday.
I didn't send it, Debbie didn't send it.
You must have been dreaming.
You got it today.
What are you gonna get? Maybe I got it today.
You got it
You got
today.
one today.
Well, I wasn't here Friday.
Well, that's why you got it
Let me
today.
assure you.
But there's still
since-
time.
Since I do read everything.
There's still time, so you can still read it.
Well,
But we
we
changed the
did all
wording
that
and-
before. I think we covered everything
Um,
that I had.
But please,
Are we ready to take that to resolution?
Yes.
Okay.
Can we make an agreement that people will look at it, and if anybody's got any questions, they can pose those questions to Pat?
can we do that?
You do what?
Can we pass this?
No, we're not talking about passing it.
Oh,
We're
okay.
just talking about,
Okay.
so that next week when we sit down, we don't end up with the minutia
Right,
of
right.
going through,
Okay. Yep.
you know,
Yeah,
thirty-
please,
you know.
if you have any questions or changes, let me know. And I'll send
This
it
is
out.
different than the last one you gave me?
I made the changes that you suggested.
Oh, you got my revised,
Yes.
well then, I'm fine then.
Word for word.
You can't trust me.
All right, well, you go ahead and read it now and see if you like my suggestions, that's all.
Okay, the next on the list you received in your packet, the perma loss control report. As you can see again, you got an A+ 40 report, which is a very good thing. I did not include it because I received it in the mail today, and it has probably something to do with the perma report that we have learned that our liability insurance, NYMERS, proposed rate adjustments for 2014, they will go down again. And that's very good. This is their 6th straight year of reductions, which I think is very good, given the economy and things that have been going on.
So does that mean that we're overcharging?
Yep.
So-
The remarkable thing about the permit is, before they came into existence, there was another pooling of risks, and it failed miserably. And those entities, many of which were municipalities, had to pony up extra money because they didn't have the wherewithal to cover the liabilities. So when PERMA came into existence, that was a tussle for them to get the confidence of people to go with them.
They've done a heck of a job with that company. 2, 3, 4. What I'm sharing next, hot off the press, I managed to throw this together this morning, is what we would propose to have for the plaque at the site of the Katyville Rec Park. Mel has gone out and done some work, I don't seem to have that note here, to identify costs. The costs are not significant, really, excessive maybe is a better word. For brass, stainless steel, and I believe aluminum. I immediately thought about brass, which was the more expensive. I think that one was $200. And this is the same company you called online, Paul, Plaques R Us or something. They did a heck of a job, and they have a really good price for this. But what we've discovered is if we did this on stainless steel, we can put our logo and actually do it in color, which I think would be, and that's the cheaper version. But we can make sure this could be encased, it would be under the roof or something of the building to protect it from the elements. But getting the town's logo on there, I think, is really
Will
important.
they give a guarantee on the color?
I don't know. That's a good question. It's a very good question.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Our colors don't run.
leave a lot.
I'll seek the answer to that. I don't know if anyone has any thought or input. Mel, actually, Sheriff Favreau drafted an idea. Mel worked with that, and then I massaged it just a pinch more today. I'm looking at putting September 13 down. That is the last day.
September 30th?
Or September 30, not 13. September 30th down. That is the last day of the existing lease. Our town attorney is in process of fixing the closing date that I expect will happen almost any day. There's a couple of documents we're requesting that have been executed, and then I believe that will be scheduled. What is your guess, Jim?
Well, I sent back to Bill Favreau, there's just a couple of changes that we had to make in the deed, nothing big. We have to get something from the community college that they've approved. And actually it's going to be, we're changing what they call the grantor from Clinton County to Clinton County acting for the community college or something. I sent it today and I copied Bernie on it along with, we sent him a call from the title insurance company, then Schedule B, these are the issues. They're minuscule, so in the worst case, I can revise the deed myself, so it's quite a simple transaction.
We want to do a press release. We want to make sure many people that were very concerned, remember this room was quite filled with individuals, want to be sure we didn't lose that property, give them a chance to be there. We've talked about coordinating it with maybe a function going on out there at that time. But I think the important thing right now is we'll have the closing and get the plaque delivered, and I will check to see about some guarantee of colors. And then we can find the right day and time, and we'll make sure everybody's aware of that for some sort of ceremony event. I don't know if there are any descendants of the Harry Alpert family in the area. Certainly we'd invite them, Dr. Jablonski, anyone from Clinton Community, as well as our county legislators. So that's the plan. We'll get that out to you as it evolves. If you have any concerns, let me know. Next is the draft for next Monday. We have minutes, please look them over. I haven't looked them over at all. You have the planning department monthly report. We don't have the resolution, but you have the documents. Our clerk's monthly report.
I'll make a comment just for what it's worth. They're a little thin-staffed in the planning department these days.
Yes, very thin.
I sat through that meeting today. These are
Oh.
not terribly complex issues. If anybody's got a question or whatever, if they want to call me, I'll be happy to fill them in on what's proposed.
Okay. The reappointment of Wanda Rasco to the Board of Assessment Review. I think I looked at that one, but a lot of these I haven't reviewed yet either, but if you see something, let me know. Park and Recreation Report. We also have the Codes and Zoning Monthly Report. I don't know if you are all aware, Alan Reese will also be out for, I think, 6 weeks with a hip replacement. So our planning and our codes are kind of limping along. I did meet with
No
Ms.
pun intended.
No pun intended. He picked up on that quite well. I met with Mr. Von Bargen Friday, and we're kind of thinking he'll be back in a couple of weeks. You also have one that came to us late today. This is a draft. We would propose to have this available for Monday as well. The naming of a new road, Freedom Drive, in Heritage Heights. They've been chomping on the bit to get that done. Jim Woods did his letter. Also, just as an aside, I don't know if any of you have, I've been down to see Tom King. I didn't get much chance to get a report today. I know Jim Woods and a couple of the guys are going down midday.
They're hoping that he is able to leave, I think Jim told me, within the next day or so.
Jimmy said he was doing a lot better.
Yeah.
Really? Because he had a tough
Today,
weekend.
yeah, he had a very rough weekend, but he's doing a lot
Oh,
better
good.
today.
That's good to hear. He's quite ill in the hospital. I'll leave it at that at this point. He's very positive thinking and has been getting the help and the treatments he needs. So we'll see. And as you all know, I'm sure Sharon and Diane are his sisters. And that's all I have.